Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. We will wait for next 1 minute so that maximum participant can join the webinar. Once again, good evening to everyone. Thanks for joining webinar on digital consent acquisition. Introducing myself, I am Sandesh Waman, Assistant Vice President, CPaaS Operation and Bandwidth Management at Neko Cloud. Quick background check about me. I have a decade of experience in telecom industry, working with different national and international telecom operators and providers. Also, actively participating for DLT implementation and regulation part from the initial phase and a QS part. In today's webinar, we will be quickly covering about different phases, that is an overview of TRAI regulation. TRAI is nothing but Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. We are also covering about the consent. So more details about the consent and why it is required. Also, what is the digital consent acquisition? We will also cover different ways to acquire digital consent on DLT. There are different benefits for the digital consent acquisition. We are also going to understand the same. And the important part, what are the actions required from the principal entities or the enterprises for digital consent acquisition. In the last part or in the last moment of the session, we will be having a quick demo on how to perform consent management on operator DLT portal, post which we will be opening question and answer session. During the webinar, if you have any queries or doubts, then you can put the same in our question and answer chat box, chat window, and we will try to address those queries in FAQ session. In case any queries or question remains unanswered, then don't worry, we will be sharing all list of FAQs in our next communication along with the DLT user manuals for the consent acquisition. So moving to the overview of the TRAI regulation 2018, TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, in its continuous endeavor to create cleaner and transparent system in Indian telecom industry, had released the regulation in July 2018 to curb unsolicited commercial communication and enhance mobile subscriber privacy. The regulation is intended to eliminate spam, fraud, which has been concern for many years in the industry. The regulation has mandated the use of blockchain technology, which is well known as distributed ledger technology. We call it as a DLT, to implement regulations. So these regulations has been implemented in different phases by the DLT operator as per the TRAI directives. So we are just understanding the overview of the complete regulation, which is implemented earlier. In the first phase, all entities or enterprise in the industry have registered themselves on the operator portal by doing the KYC, by paying the fees. In the second phase, all entities have done the send ID, that is a header registration on the DLT portal, for which operator had started the scrubbing. In the third phase, operator allowed to register the content and the consent template. In earlier part, or in earlier English part, we had understand how to upload the content template, consent template, and the implementation of the same as per the TRAI regulation. Now, next is the fourth phase about the consent management. So here it comes the digital consent acquisition. Moving to the next. So what is a consent? So before understanding the digital consent acquisition, we need to first understand what is the meaning or what is the definition of consent. According to the regulation, consent means any voluntary permission given by the end subscriber to the brand to receive the commercial communication which is related to specific purpose. The purpose should be specific for the specific product or the services to acquire the consent. So this is a simple definition of the consent. Now, what is the necessity of the digital consent? In the prevalent system that is in earlier system, the consent was obtained and maintained by the various entities. Those are acquired and obtained and maintained by the various entities. Therefore, it is not possible for the telecom operators to check the authenticity or to verify the consent at their end. And there was no unified system for customers to provide or revoke the consent. There was no unified system wherein end user can revoke their consent. And due to this, so as there was no unified system, the commercial communication which is being sent without the verified customer consent becomes the source of inconvenience to the customer, and due to which the complaints were coming. There were unsolicited commercial communication were happening as the end customer is considering those messages as a UCC. Many times end users were not aware on the when the consent was given or how the consent was given, as there was no system, and hence the digital consent comes in a picture as per the TRAI regulation and the frameworks. So in 2018, TRAI have prescribed a mechanism of the unified system to seek, to acquire, to maintain, to revoke the consent, to address the issue mentioned in the earlier part. So as I already explained, the regulation is implemented in phased manner. First phase was PE registration, then sender ID, then template, then the consent. In the consent framework, the digital consent is being the TRAI and operator are sending the communication and implementing the DCA post. The first communication comes in the 2nd June, and later on the implementation started. So this DCA is being a secure and trustworthy facility. Okay, which is being implemented, and it is interconnected over the DLT platform by telecom service providers. So the consent acquired by the any operator will be synchronized across all the operator, and because of the blockchain technology and the DLT, that consent will be maintained, or the consent will be stored on the DLT platform of the operator in the secure manner. Moving to the next slide. So now, when we understand why the digital consent arise, or what are the requirement of the digital consent, let's understand the different ways to acquire a consent. So there are multiple ways using which principal entities can acquire the consent. The first mode is the web acquisition. In the web acquisition, principal entities can use the DLT portal and get the subscriber consent by entering the mobile number, triggering the OTP. The consent will be acquired. Second way to acquire a consent is the API integration. Here, entities need to integrate the operator API. These APIs are ready to use, and operator have made the necessary documentation available on their portal to understand how the API will function and how to integrate with the entity system. So if you take an example, a customer entities can integrate the operator API with their CRM and pass on the consent to the operator for the digital acquisition. Don't worry, we are going to give a complete live demo on all three and four ways to acquire the consents. So we are just covering different modes. So next is the QR code scanning. In this method, a QR code is generated against the consent template, which is registered by the entity, and that QR code can be displayed at the point of sale, on the website, or anywhere where the entities want to display to their customer. So the customer who are walking, or the customer who want to give the consent, they can scan it and give their consent. Next method of acquiring the consent in a digital way is the bulk upload on the DLT platform. Recently, some of the DLT operator have given the bulk option to upload the consent on the DLT platform. You can simply log in on the DLT platform and upload the mobile numbers, and the consent acquisition process will start. As of now, on the Vodafone portal, VL portal, at a time you can upload the 50K numbers. So these are the different ways using which a digital consent can be acquired by the entity. The first mode is also web portal can be used as a point of sale. So if I taking an example, there are multiple chain of stores in the city. So in the store manager or the storekeeper can acquire the consent using this web portal. Similarly, they can display the QR code on the store and get the consent. API integration basically more or less related to the entity's application, which can be integrated with the operator consent module, so that the consent can be passed on through the API to acquire from the end user. Now moving to the benefits of the digital consent. There are different benefits which digital consent have. Considering the end consumer, so digital consent empowers the consumers to manage their consent in effective manner. With the digital consent method, the end user can manage the consent very effectively. They can revoke the consent anytime, or they can opt the consent anytime. Earlier, it was not the case. The revoke option was not available, and it was not unified. Second benefit, since the consent is sought through a common shortcode, to acquire a consent, the operator will initiate a message using the header, that is starting with 1 to 7. Last 3 digits are being reserved for the each and every operator, so it will be changed. But 1 to 7 is the standard short code or the sender ID, with which the consent will be initiated. This will increase the consumer's awareness and the trust into process. So this will be standard. All operators will initiate the consent using this short code. So it will be standard and it will be a trusted process. Moving to the benefit, which will be for the principal entities. So by implementing the digital consent acquisition, principal entities will get compliant with the TRAI regulation under the consent management framework. All complaints. So the next benefit is very important. So DCA or digital consent acquisition will help to curb down the consent related complaints and penalties. So in case of penalties or in case of complaints, so DCA will going to help here to principal entities, since the consent being stored, managed in the digital manner on the DLT platform. Third important benefit is digital consent will build a trust with the end consumers and increase the ROI, return on investment, on your marketing activities. You will able to increase your ROI by using the DCA, since you will able to increase your reach to the end customers, since you will be having the verified consent. So important point, actionable and important pointers about the DCA, or rather you can say what are the actioning from the enterprise entities. So please note that consent is applicable to only promotional and service exclusive type of messages. So basically, the DCA frameworks is applicable only for the promotional and service exclusive. There is no impact to your transactional, that is OTP and service implicit type of messages. They will deliver as it is. Next important point which entities or enterprise have to keep in mind is that to acquire a consent, entities need to buy a consent credit from the operator on the DLT platform. We will show you in the later on demo how the consent credit management happens on the DLT portal. Please note that the consent acquired is having the validity. So currently, the validity of the consent, each and every consent having the validity up to 1 year. So whatever consent taken today on 30th November, it will be having the validity of 1 year only. It is as per the regulation and defined by the operators. As a framework or as a directive from the TRAI, for the digital consent acquisition, initially the principal entity which are belonging to the BFSI sector, banking, finance, insurance, and trading related sectors will be onboarded to initiate the consent acquisition, and the remaining sectors like e-commerce, health card, and real estate and all sectors will be onboarded subsequently. So first, BFSI will be onboarded as per the TRAI directives. So we have covered on about the details about the digital consent acquisition, different ways. Now we will be moving to the quick demo wherein I will show you how the consent will be acquired and how that will work on the operator DLT platform. Just give me 1 minute so that I can log into the DLT portal and show you the demo. So I hope everyone will able to see the VIL Power DLT portal. So I'm using the VIL Power DLT portal to show the consent acquisition process. So once you log into the portal, there are multiple options are available. Here, there is an option which is consent acquisition. Now, one by one, we will first understand the different ways of acquiring the consent. As we understand, the first mode of acquiring consent is web acquisition. If you remember, the first mode was web acquisition, wherein a store executive or store manager can click here on the web acquisition, log into DLT portal and acquire the consent. So here already a consent template is defined. So this is just only for the demo purpose. So once you select the consent template, you will see the scope of consent. So as I told you, this is only for the demo purpose. In the consent template, you need to mention the scope of consent. So you can register your consent template by visiting this option, consent template. So first we will focus on the first way of acquiring the consent. Here, when the customer walk-ins or if you want to take a consent using a web portal, you can key in the mobile number of the subscriber, click on the generate OTP. A OTP will be triggered to the end user. Just enter the OTP here by asking to subscriber and submit. In this way, the web acquisition consent will be initiated. Since the OTP is triggered, this is being a verified consent, and this scope of consent will be triggered to the end user who want to give the consent. This is the first mode of consent acquisition. Now moving to the API configuration. So second way or second mode of consent acquisition was configuring the API. Basically, you can click on the API configuration and enable the API. So here you need to make the payment, some payment to the operator to enable the API, and these settings will be done by the admin of this principal entity login. So more details about the API, technical details are basically available with the operator. The user manual also available with the operator, with the help of which you can configure the API. In the API, you need to pass a consent template, mobile number, and there is a standard source which you need to pass, and post which operator will initiate the consent on your behalf, and post the consent is received, same will be updated on the DLT portal only. Now moving to the third method, that is a QR code. So to generate a QR code, you need to click here on the consent template. As per requirement, whatever the consent template which is already approved on the DLT portal, here is the option to download the QR code. So in our case, we have approved, we have taken an approval, or we have uploaded one sample consent template just for the demo purpose. And here, so this is a template which is being approved by the operator. And when you click on this download option, a QR code get downloaded. So if you all want to experience how QR code will work, you can scan this QR code and experience how the consent acquisition will happen using the QR code. You can try it, or I will show you what will happen post to scan the QR code. Post to scan the QR code, it will ask to redirect to on this page. So basically, post scanning, it will ask you to go to the website. The website will be redirected here on the VIL power, since we are doing the, okay, just a minute. Let me share the, so this QR code will be shown you can scan the QR code to experience and to feel how the consent acquisition happens with the QR code. You can scan with your mobile number, post which you will redirect it to the website, which will look like this. This is a VIL website. Since we are DLT website, since we are initiating the consent from the Vodafone Idea DLT portal. So similar, whatever we just saw on the web acquisition mode, same will be displayed here. End user have to enter the mobile number. Generate OTP option will be available, and end user have to key in the OTP and submit. Post submission, this SMS will be triggered to the end user. I will show you the sample SMS. So see here. So basically, post you submit the OTP, a SMS starting with the 127 is initiated from the end user's operator. In this case, the subscriber was Jio, since this consent is initiated by the Jio. So you can see here the consent scope. Okay, it is mentioned to continue receiving executive offers from us on call and SMS. Submit your consent. To give your consent, reply with this shortcode with yes or no. So end user have to reply with yes or no. Okay, when they will reply with the yes, the consent is captured as positive consent, and end user will receive this message that your consent is successfully captured and verified, and it is valid. The validity also mentioned here. So basically, this consent was initiated on the 28th November 2023. It have a validity of 28th November 2024. In the similar way, end user can click on the operator this portal link. Okay, it will redirect you to the operator app, and the consent management can be done by the end user using the app. So this is about the consent acquisition using the QR code method. Now again, coming back to the VIL portal, there is one more option to acquire the consent in the bulk. As we understand, this is the fourth option. Here, an entity can upload the bulk consent in a similar way, selecting the consent template, the scope of consent, and uploading the file. So there are some restrictions are given here. Please enter the 10-digit mobile numbers only. One consent will be directed from your account per number. Ensure you have sufficient credits and ensure there are no duplicates in the file. So the sample of the file will be look like this. So if you want to upload the Perl, this is a format. Okay. So now moving again to the web portal. Okay. So here you can upload the consent in a bulk. Okay. Now just going to the dashboard, we will quickly go through the dashboard. So here I can see someone have initiated the consent by scanning the QR code, and those are showing pending. Okay, once they reply with the S or they visit the operator mobile app, the app which is being like managed by the Airtel, Jio or Vodafone, there is an option to consent management. If they give the consent, this will be going to acquire here. So earlier this was a single, now 3 users have requested for the consent, I think using the QR code option. So here the consent, as we already shown, the consents are chargeable. So you need to buy a consent on the DLT platform by paying these fees. These fees are defined by the operators, and those will be basically managed by them. So to acquire a consent credit is mandatory. Then only the consent acquisition will happen. Here you can check the report of the consent acquired. So basically, if you want to see the report are available here. I will just show you the report. Just a minute. Okay, let me download the report. Okay, I will show how the report will look like. So once the consent is acquired, in this way, the report is available on the DLT portal. You can see here a template ID, a consent ID, a mobile number which has given a consent, and the status is given here, and when the consent was requested. So the one consent was requested today and it was active status. So far, we understand on this consent acquisition tab. So these all options we have explored. Now, the forum is open for the question and answer. So basically, you can put your questions and we will try to answer them as possible. Okay. So there are a couple of questions. Okay. I'll just go through one by one. So one question is about if the brand is getting any form filled by the user along with the OTP, is this counted as a consent? So the answer is no, since as per the new TRAI regulation and the framework, the digital consent have to be backed by operator verification that should be verified by the operator. So the digital consent acquisition will happen in this manner only. So operator will initiate the OTP from their end, and once the OTP is keyed in the DCA process, that will be called as a verified. So any other method will be not a valid method to acquire consent apart from whatever we discuss or we seen on the screen. So next question is the consent required for the existing base of customers also? Yes, the consent is required for existing base also, since previous all consent are nullified and not valid, since those are not digitally taken or maintained, and as per the new regulation, the consent should be taken in the digital way and backed and verified by the operators only. So I'm just going through the questions and we'll take one by one. So someone asks, can you share the TRI regulation details? So basically, see, TRI regulation details are available on the TRI website, but definitely we can share with you post this webinar. So the details are readily available, and so consent manuals are also available in the operator DLT portal. Those are very simple to understand manuals, wherein the whatever topic we covered, whatever ways we covered, those are available in all operator manuals. One question is, can we integrate this DCA on our website? So as I said, you can integrate the operator API, the consent API with your website. So whenever any user try to create account or try to sign up, you can you can configure the API in that model, pass on the mobile number consent ID to the operator, and the consent can be acquired. So yes, you can integrate the API, consent API with your website, for which you need to coordinate with the operator and they will guide us on the technical part. Okay, one question coming is like, can you please share the deck? Definitely post this webinar. We will be sharing the deck with all of you with the user manuals whenever required. One question is coming, how do a brand procure the 127 ID to acquire consent, or it is assigned to brand by operator? See, basically this 127 short code is the brand don't have to procure. Okay, that short code is assigned by TRI to the respective operator, and the operator will initiate that consent message to the end user. Okay, so you don't need to procure that short code. That is something in the framework, and the operator will initiate the message in the 127, and that is that short code 127 is dedicated only for the basically consent acquisition. Each and every operator will be having some unique code post 127. Now, next question is the consent is for sender or customer receiver? The template will be defined by whom? So basically, see, the consent template will be defined by the brand or the entities. Example, if you want to send some offers related messages, so you are presenting a scope of consent saying ki, dear customer, we are going to send you the offers, discounts related information. This is scope of consent. Okay, please reply yes or no, or click on the link. This is something appended by the operator. So the consent template need to be registered by the brand entity on the DLT portal and to initiate the consent, digital consent. Okay. So I'm getting a question repeatedly that what is the effective date of this regulation? See, from the month of February, multiple TRI directives or the regulation being sent by the TRI to the telcos, and telcos have sent the communication to the principal entities, authorized person of the principal entities. So basically 2nd June was the date wherein the TRI have given the deadline of 2 months to the telcos, to the operators to implement the digital consent acquisition framework on the DLT. Okay, the communication were happening 30th November was the date. Okay, for to onboard the BFSI customers, that the process is still ongoing. As such, there is nothing blocked or operator will not allow to take a consent like that. It is not happening. So you can continue acquiring the consent, or you can start the acquisition of the consent, uh, and the benefits are already given to comply with the regulation. You can continue to acquiring the consent. So yeah, so going to the next question. So one question is like, will we get any MIS to check how many SMS delivered to get consent? So as I shown you on the DLT portal, you will able to see the summary and report. You will able to check. So there are certain cycles wherein the operator will initiate the consent to the end user basically. So if I give the more brief on it, so basically it will be retried if the consent is not given by the end user. The details are available on the manual. So basically what happen if after the consent acquisition message is sent to subscriber, if the subscriber responds with a Y, the consent is considered successful and the consent will be active for the next 12 months. If the subscriber responds with no, that is N, the consent is considered rejected. The same consent message cannot be sent to the subscriber for the subsequent 90 days. All this information is available in the regulation. I'm just reiterating for your information. If the subscriber does not respond to the consent message even after the reminder within 72 hours, the consider is expired as expired, and the same consent message cannot be sent that subscriber for the subsequent 90 days. So one more question. Will the commercial communication be limited to the SMS or does it extend to the other communication channels like RCS or calling? See, basically, as of now, as per the TRAI framework, this is being the scope is defined is for the SMS, okay, and the voice. The SMS is under implementation, means there are different phases are getting implemented, okay. As such, there is nothing like for RCS, okay. So as of now, this framework is somehow commercial communication somehow applicable to the SMS, that is bulk SMS, and the voice. Voice is also going to be soon applicable or implemented by the operators. So one more very interesting question: do we need consent product level or company level? Yeah, very good question. See, as the definition of the consent, it is specific to the product. It is specific to the purpose. So you cannot use the same consent for the multiple product. Example: if one company, let's say take a bank, bank have the credit card, bank offers the insurance, okay, bank offers the other services. So so they cannot use the common consent for the all type of product. So consent is specific to that product or the purpose. So I hope I am able to answer the question. So consent is specific to product, purpose, or the defined process. One consent cannot be used for the multiple verticals. So one more question coming. Is the consent applicable only when the customer has registered under DND? So basically, see, uh, consent, when you going to get a consent, you need to take a consent for the all. You will not able to segregate ki, these are my DND number, I will take a consent for this, these are my non-DND consent for this. So maybe a user today is non-DND, okay, he given the consent, tomorrow he move to DND, okay, but as you have the consent will supersedes the DND reference or DND preference, okay. So basically, we will not able to segregate ki I'm going to get a consent for the DND non-DND. We need to take a consent for all. Okay. Maybe tomorrow the customers or the consumers who are not DND, they might go to the DND. But since you have the consent, you will able to reach to that customer or consumers. So one more question which actually we covered. Is promo and explicit message valid for the consent only, means can those services are discontinued for the SMS content tab? See, as I explained, currently only promotional marketing messages and service explicit type of messages comes under the DCA purview. So you don't need to take a consent for the OTP or transactional messages. the consent is applicable only for the promotional and service expense type of messages as of now. One more question is coming. The panel shows 50K consent for 1.2 lakhs. Do we utilize this at one or full base? Okay. So basically it will be like as pay as you use, since it is something a prepaid mode. Okay. More details on the commercials will be given by the operator. You can anytime reach out the operator for the commercial queries on the consent charges. So one more question is coming. Insurance for a longer tenure. So does this mean we have to take a consent every year from the existing customer? See, when you want to send a promotional service extension messages, the consent having the validity of 1 year, and definitely if you are sending any type of messages, it may be an insurance or it may be a other type. Okay, if it is a promotional, the consent validity is 1 year as per the regulation. So yes, the renewal is as per the current process, the renewal is mandatory, or you need to renew the consent. It cannot be a lifetime consent as of now. Can we scrub our consent base and pay for additional? So I'm not bit understand this question. Okay, since as of now, no one have the any scrubber mechanism apart from the operator. Okay, so I think so operator are the right body to scrub the base or scrub the consent. See, as I told you, digital consent acquisition, first BFSI will be onboarded, later on rest of the sector will be onboarded. Definitely TRI and the operator are pushing with some timelines, but you can start it and you can complete the process. Okay, as such operator is not going to stop anything on the DLT portal. You will not able to acquire the consent. It will be there since rest of the industry is going to onboard. But yes, since there are many communication happening from the operator and the TRI to the operator COI, so this process have to be started and completed as per the regulation and the timelines. So many questions are coming. So one more question is coming. Consent is valid only for 365 days, that is 1 year, but after that do we need to send consent again to the same customer? Yes, since the validity of the consent is 1 year, the reinitiation of consent needs to be done. One more question, how far we can customize this DCA? So the question is unclear. The customization, basically this is something a process or the framework designed by the operators. So whatever the way being designed to acquire the consent, the entities have to follow. So I don't think any customization means what exactly you're looking, I'm not getting. So you can send us the query and definitely we will answer your question. So I will take some frequently asked question from the existing this one. So if customer is in full DND, can they receive the consent acquisition message? So answer is yes. If customer is in full DND, they can receive the consent acquisition message, which I shown in the earlier slide. That message can be delivered to the full DND, which is initiated by the operator. Okay. Is the creating consent template chargeable? So the answer is no. So creating a consent template on a DLT is not chargeable. Only consent creates are chargeable. And if you want to go to the consent API, it is also chargeable. So it depends on the operator. You can check the charges by logging to the DLT. The charges are available, visible to the everyone. and simple to understand. One more FAQ. If a customer replies and to the short code, what is the timeline to respond to the consent? So answer is the same consent acquisition cannot be sent to customer within a 90 days. So if anyone's reply to the end note to the customer digital consent acquisition, that again that consent cannot be initiated in next 90 days. There are many questions coming. These are regarding the timelines. The timelines basically, as per the operator, the timeline for BFSI something started in the month of September. For all consenting started from the September. The 30th November is something timeline told by the operator. But I think so that it will be there so that entities can onboard. But definitely you need to follow the consent acquisition to get compliant with the TRAI regulation. So some questions may ask, please define the service expiry implicit, what it includes and excludes. So see, this is basically thing, and this was something a very basic phase wherein when it is called a service implicit, it is something like when you order something, okay, the message which is saying ki your order will be delivered by tomorrow. This is something on service implicit type of messages, since it is being sent post the action of the end subscriber. Or if I give a good example, when you enter the OTP and you get your amount is credited debited, it is a service implicit type of messages. So more questions are coming on the API related. So API related questions and queries, you will get all your answer in the user manuals. So operator have given simple manuals wherein there are callback URLs or how the API can be configured, how it will be initiated, all details are there. So this will be not right forum to explain you about the technical stuff on the API. Definitely this can be taken, okay, with the user manuals, and those will helpful on all these queries. Do we have to take consent according to DLT ID or sender ID? See, the consent is taken with the consent template and with the scope. So sender ID and these are the different thing. Okay. So consent is something relevant to your whatever you want to define, or scope of consent you define on the DLT portal, and you can take the consent for that for the promotional service experience. So many questions are coming. So is it applicable for DND registered customer for all customers? See, customer basically when you acquire consent, you will not able to know the customer, the end user is a DND or non-DND. You need to take a consent for all. Okay, I'm just going through the questions so I can answer to the question which are repeated. So everyone will get benefited on this. Is a brand charged for the consent OTP also, or it is a part of consent credit bot? See, basically, whatever the message sent or OTP been trigger, that's been being taken care by the operator. You need to just buy a credit, and other flow will happen. Once you buy a credit, the message consent message which is issued by the operator will be taken care by them. Okay, and even OTP also sent by them. Okay, it will be not sent by you or from your platform. There was one question: to acquire a consent, need to take a OTP from the customer. So when during the web acquisition method mode, so basically when the customer walk-ins, okay, and you trigger take his number keys in the method web method, the OTP will trigger, and yes, you need to tell the customer to enter the OTP there, so that the operator will verify it. Need to capture consent log from DLT platform or company. So bit different question. So see, consent log, basically consent reports are available on the operator DLT portal. The summary or detailed report which shown sometime back, those will help to understand the consent, which user given the consent or which user consent got expired or rejected. Okay, the consent is required for existing bases. Consent is required for existing base as well. Okay, so we have covered almost all frequently asked questions. In case the questions are not answered by me, we will be basically we will be answering the all questions uh, in the FAQs part. Okay, and we will be reply back to all queries. So thanks everyone. Thanks for joining the webinar. You can post your queries on our regulatory inbox so that our team will answer to those queries, and you will be getting the manuals and the copy of deck on your email IDs soon. Thank you. Have a nice evening. Thanks.